What is up, guys? Thank you so much for tuning in. And today we got something different. Today is gonna be probably one of the most unorthodox jump shot tutorials you have ever watched, right? So I've dropped one before, and we kind of go over like some of the main key things, the pillars of a proper jump shot, right? Today, I want to address 5 things that are, somewhat unorthodox. Some people might call them weird, but 5 things that for me personally allow me to shoot the ball at a high level, and also something that a lot of NBA greats, a lot of elite NBA shooters do, right? And like a couple of those 5 things, it also will be like myth busters. So there's 2 things that people say that you can't really do and you have to do it a certain way. And I'm gonna show you a lot of proof that that is absolutely not the case, okay? So I hope you guys enjoy this. I hope you guys learn something, and I hope maybe if some of you already do these things and you have coaches in your ear just telling you to fix them, maybe after this video you will have a little bit more confidence in understanding that there is actually nothing wrong with your shot. Like I've been told by a lot of coaches in the past that I can't do these certain things and I have to fix them, and I'm so glad I didn't, because that is what allowed me to become an elite shooter, okay? All right, guys, so without further ado, let's get to it. All right, guys, weird hack number 1. So as a kid growing up, right, I was trying to become an elite shooter, and every single time I would jump to shoot it, my knees would collapse in like this, and then I would go up to shoot it, right? And you already know, my coaches were on me about that. Oh, you got weak hips, you got weak quads, you got weak glutes. I mean, everything weak, right? Like, you can't do it that way because then your knees are gonna, which is kind of ironic because my knees are pretty bad, but that's not what caused my cartilage to, to disappear from my knees. But, so it was just like this thing, right? And I was like trying to fix it. I was trying to force my body for my knees to just stay open like this and just go straight up without collapsing towards the inside, right? So here's kind of how I came to my discovery that, hey, maybe there's nothing wrong with that. So discovery number 1, I was watching a dunk contest, and I forgot who the dunkers were, but I remember the dunk. I remember that a player lobbed it to himself and then started chasing after the ball, and he was gathering off 2 feet. And they kind of slow-moed that video, and when he was gathering and he was like in that low stance with his 2 feet, and his knees were going completely in, like completely collapsed, right? And after that, I started observing more and more dunkers would do that. When they would gather off 2 feet, their knees would go completely in, right? And what's the main thing that people say is that you can't do that because now like you're hurting your knees, right? So like, but I know I'm going on a tangent here, but the big thing is we don't want our knees to collapse when we have a lot of weight, right? So when we squat, we obviously don't want to squat like this with a lot of weight. But when it's just us, our body weight, and we're gonna have our knees go in, it literally doesn't do anything, okay? It literally doesn't affect our knees, it doesn't hurt them, right? And then I just started noticing that after other elite level players. One of them, Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan's knees would go in when he would go to shoot a jump shot. So, according to my coaches and a whole bunch of other people on the internet, Michael Jordan had weak hips, weak quads, weak glutes, weak legs, weak everything. Michael Jordan, one of the best high flyers of all time. A dude had quads, I mean, humongous quads. Hamstrings, a well-developed elite body. And his knees would collapse and go in. Reggie Miller's another one. Larry Bird's another one. Kevin Durant, James Harden, Kyle Korver, Peja Stojakovic, Kobe Bryant. I mean, there's so many players that do that. It doesn't mean that they're weak, that they have weak hips, weak quads, whatever. okay? Like, I refuse to believe that James Harden or Kobe Bryant or Michael Jordan or all these other top tier players have weak quads, weak glutes, weak hips. I just refuse to believe that. So that was, once I started noticing that, I completely starting to disregard what the coaches were saying, because to me, it was something that was just happening naturally. I wasn't controlling that. And I couldn't control that by just forcing my legs to go like this, because it just, like, once I'm playing, once I'm moving at full speed and I'm not thinking about my knees will do this automatically. And I mean, I wouldn't feel any pain, but that's just something that coaches were trying to change in my game for a very long time. And I was starting to overthink, and it started kind of like slowly ruining my shot a little bit until I started seeing things for myself. So knees collapsing in on a jump shot, there's nothing wrong with that. For me personally, it gives me more comfort, and that's just naturally how I shoot. So you do not need to change that if you do that. If you have your knees just going straight up and not collapsing, perfect, that's great, okay? But don't allow somebody else to tell you that knees collapsing on a jump shot is bad. Knees collapsing when you have 200, I don't know how much pound you put on the bench to squat with, but yeah, squatting with a lot of weight, knees collapsing in, that's bad. But jump shot, I highly doubt there's anything with collapsing knees in that's gonna hurt your knees if you're just gonna shoot the ball on a jump shot. So that's number one. All right, weird hack number two, and that is by far was one of the big reasons why my jump shot was almost ruined. So when I shoot the ball, okay, I have a very relaxed wrist on the ball. So I'm not gonna like forcing my wrist to be like perfectly square, perfectly straight on the ball, right? Because now my wrist is very tense. My wrist is very loose and relaxed. So I'm gonna be like this. When I go up, my hand faces that way. So if the rim's in front of me, when I bring the ball to my set point, my hand is facing that way on the ball like this. And then when I go to extend my shooting arm and I release it, my wrist will square up with the rim, and then I would shoot, okay? So my coaches were saying that I have to have wrist being straight on, square with the basket the whole time. And I tried to change to that, but then this part of my wrist will hurt like crazy. Like I was just in a lot of discomfort, and I started to miss shots, I mean, one after another, right? So, and then they were saying how this right here is gonna negatively affect my shot, and like my hand can't be like that. And then the first player that I've ever seen do that, Dwayne Wade. Like his hand will go in like this, and then it will square up at the end, and then he'll shoot it. And now I see so many players have this same thing. One of them is the best shooter to ever live, Steph. So maybe his doesn't go as much in, but it still go, you know, fairly in like this, and then he squares it completely on the release. So here's what I think. It doesn't matter where your hand is looking at the set point. What matters is, does it square with the basket upon the release of the ball? And if it does, then you're gonna shoot straight line shot. You don't have to force this uncomfortable stiff wrist on the ball so that way your hand is perfectly squared at all times. My hand goes like this here, and then at the end I would square it and then shoot it, okay? So if you do that, you don't have to change that. If you're making shots, that's fine, okay? I'm not saying this is bad. Some people's wrists and, you know, just their arms, their hands, they build differently than ours, right? So it's fine, but I'm saying, if you feel comfortable shooting like this and you make shots and somebody tries to tell you otherwise, keep shooting that same way, because I promise you a lot of elite shooters do shoot the same way. And all that matters, as long as we square that wrist at the end upon the release of the ball. Third weird hack, and that's a very controversial topic, right? So when I was growing up, coaches would always preach that you cannot let your eyes go off the target. You always have to keep your eyes on the target before the shot and after the shot, right? For me personally, it never worked. For me, I look at the target before my shot, and then when I shoot it, as soon as the ball leaves my hands, I look up and follow the ball after my release, and I do not shoot like this, with my eyes being completely locked on the rim the entire time. Now, there's two camps, right? There's camp of people like me who look at the ball. In that camp, we also have Stephen Curry and LeBron James and Klay Thompson. And then there's other camp of people that look directly at the rim the entire time, even after the release, okay? So, is there one method that's wrong here? No, both are right. There's no wrong. It just depends what works for you. But I've always had coaches that were trying to tell me that there's, only one way to do this. And on some things, I do agree, but there's also a lot of things in a jump shot that there's just more than one way of doing them, right? For me personally, I cannot keep my eyes locked. I have to release and look up. I love seeing my arch and rotation on the ball. It almost like that self-feedback, and kind of allows me to understand why I made or missed that shot, okay? It allows me to see my arc, my backspin, all of those things, okay? It doesn't really matter if I'm still looking at the rim. Like, I'm looking at the rim prior to my release. I release it, and then I look, okay? So whatever works for you, I'm just here to let you know that either option is fine. If you look at the ball, great. Steph does too. If you look at the rim, great. Devin Booker and many others do too. Just depends what works for you. But with this topic here, I wanted you guys to know that looking at the ball after the release is completely fine. Weird hack number 4. And in the beginning of things, when I was trying to, fix my shot and I was trying to figure out how to properly shoot, I myself thought that was an issue because, you wouldn't want to block your eyes with the ball before the release, right? So you would want to have eyes completely, they have no obstruction here before they shoot, right? But then I just started noticing the pattern of players having sort of lower set points, and then they will stop before their release, with the ball right in front of their eyes, right? And then I was like, well, but how can they see it? But then, I wasn't really noticing that, but once I started to film myself, I noticed that my set points, they would stop right in front of my eyes. So pretty much kind of blocking the rim. But one thing that we have to realize here is that it literally happens for not even a split second. It happens so quick because if you have to think about it, so when I'm here on my dip, I'm looking at the basket. I'm going up, I'm still seeing the basket, and here I'm shooting it. That blocking of your vision happens so quickly that it doesn't really affect your shot negatively whatsoever. And come on. Trae Young shoots like that, Dame shoots like that, Steph shoots like that. All the premier elite shooters, who are smaller guards, they all stop with the ball in front of their eyes, Kyrie, Ja Morant. We can keep going. Other players, let's say Kobe, LeBron, Kawhi, Jordan, since those guys are much stronger, right? They are able to have those much higher set points when they shoot, right? Because they can compensate with their arm strength. For us smaller guards, we need to compensate a little bit more with that range of motion with our arms. So that's why usually shorter guards, they have lower set points. So we would have a lower set point here, and then we'll shoot it, right? I usually preach 2 different set points, right? So on the close mid-range shots, I usually preach higher set points so that way you don't get blocked, and then lower set point on long range shots. But one thing is stopping with the ball in front of your eyes. As long as you're obviously not gonna stop and just sit there, okay? As long as it's just like quick, boom, then that's totally fine, and that should not negatively affect your shot. And you know, coach has been always trying to tell me like raise it higher, which for me personally, I can only do that if I'm shooting from close range. If I'm shooting it from deep, my set point is gonna stop like right here. So obviously like I'm blocking my view, but it only happens for like less than a split second, which for me personally, the ball still goes in. And then weird hack number 5. For me personally, I believe in this hack more than anything else. However, I do have to admit that you can also do it another way, which also works for a lot of people, right? So what I'm talking about is flat palm shooting versus gap shooting. For me personally, I'm a flat palm shooter, okay? What flat palm allows me to do is it allows me to have a more relaxed hand, okay? It allows me to feel the ball a little bit more, and it allows me to generate more power on my shots, okay? If I have a flat palm like this, all right? What's the main argument about flat palm is that you have no control of the ball, because if you would go up to shoot it, like you can't control it, right? Thank the Lord that I have 2 hands, so that way my guy hand can support the ball on the way up, so that way I don't lose it, okay? Now, is gap shooting bad? It's not bad. So I know some people, some players that are pretty good shooters and they have that forced gap, which I'm not mad at, okay? But I also know a lot of people that force the gap, like literally force that big old gap, and have absolutely no touch on their shot. So it just depends what works for you, right? If I'm just starting out with learning how to shoot the ball, or I'm in the process of fixing my shot, I would try both and see which option suits me more, okay? For me personally, flat palm, and not just for me, for Stephen Curry, for Klay Thompson, and I mean, we can keep going. For Damian Lillard, especially because Dame literally releases his fingers off the ball, and at one point, his ball literally just lays on his flat palm, and then he just flicks it at the end with his fingers, right? Another thing that people argue about flat palm being bad is that you're not gonna release the ball with your fingertips, but my thing is how. So they're saying that I'm gonna shoot the ball like this with my palm. That's a floater. If I have no gap, it's a flat palm, I will still end up releasing the ball with my fingertips because the ball's gonna start rolling back. So it's gonna roll onto my fingertips, and then I will release it at the end with my fingertips. So no gap doesn't take away from shooting the ball at the end with fingertips. So that's my 5 weird hacks that work for me, okay? It's let me recall that in proper order. So 1, I think, was knee collapsing going in. 2 was watching the ball after the release. 3rd one was blocking the view on my set point. 4th one, I'm pretty sure I got them mixed up a little bit. 4th one, was my hand going in like this and not being squared the whole time. And then 5th one is gap and flat palm, okay? So these are my 5 weird hacks that work for me and also work for a bunch of other elite top tier NBA players. So what I want you guys to do with this video is I want you guys to just analyze it and then go maybe film yourself and then see what some of the things that you do. Or maybe you already know that because your coaches have been telling you certain things about what you need to fix, right? But my idea with this video is just to tell you guys that these 5 things, they're totally normal and there is nothing wrong with that. And then there's a lot of elite shooters that do these things. So you're not alone here. I shoot that same way too. So just wanted to let you guys know before you go and start making changes that are not necessary in your shot. All right, guys, so that will conclude our video. Thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you've learned something, and I hope now you can actually finally, have a little, breath of fresh air and understand that if you were doing these things, that you are literally not alone, and there's thousands of players who are great shooters who would do those exact same things. So with that, guys, I will end this video, and I will try to drop another tutorial or a workout probably Monday. So if you guys have any suggestions, please drop them here in the comments. Like, subscribe, comment, and I will see you guys next week. Let's get it.